Hey everybody. So let's get started on our super simple introduction beginning project in TinkerCAD. So I'm going to try to take this really slow and one step at a time to be clear as to make it easy for you guys to be able to follow along. Okay. So I understand that many of you may be using this for the first time. So I'm going to only show you a couple of tools and some very, very basic things in TinkerCAD so I don't overwhelm you with too much tech in the first lesson. So stay with me and we'll get started right now. So now that we're in TinkerCAD, let's create a new design by clicking here on this blue button. Here we go. And this takes us into our work area. So what you're seeing here, let me move this out of the way, is a work plane. This is where we're going to create our house. And the first thing that you always want to do anytime you get into a new file is you want to name it. So if you look up here, TinkerCAD gives it some weird name. We can just click that and delete it and name it to describe the project. So you know if you need to go back to it, you would know what to look for. So something that makes sense to you that describes what you're doing. So I named it Hack My House because that's what we're going to start with. So let me just walk you around a little bit. This is our work plane. We're going to be working with basic shapes over here. There are other menus of shapes. You can check those out at your own leisure, but we're just going to work with basic shapes today. We have some shortcut tools across the top, like undo, redo. I'll be using a couple of these tools over here and also some navigation. So I'll show you that in a minute once we get an object onto our work plane. So I want everybody to start with a box. So I see a box over here and I'm just going to click it, hold it, drag and drop it onto the work plane. So a couple of things. I know that it's selected because I see these little squares around it. I can see some arrows. I can see kind of a little cone right there. That's how I know it's selected. So if I click off of it, it's not selected and I won't be able to do anything with it. But when you want to do something with that shape, go ahead and give it a click. You can change colors here. You can turn it into a hole, which we'll talk about in a minute here. So there's some options there. And to make it resize and move it, you just hold onto it and you can move it around to the work plane just by keeping your finger pressed on that mouse as you're dragging it. We can look at it in different ways by using this navigation tool over here so I can see the different sides of it, the top, the bottom. So there's different things that we can do here. If it gets too weird or your view isn't working for you anymore, you can always click on this home view and it takes you back to how we started. So that's a handy one. Zooming in, zooming out. These are things that I like to use with my mouse. So you might not see me clicking over here, but I also do this with my mouse. So to zoom in, I'll roll, or zoom out, I'll roll my mouse up. To zoom in, I'll take the roller on my mouse and roll that the other way. To look at the different angles, I'll hold my right finger down on the mouse and I can kind of look if we wanted to do that. Okay, so I'm going to take this out just a little bit or go back to that home view. Now let's talk about changing the size of this box. So you have 3 dimensions in any kind of object, right? Any kind of object that has a length, a width, and a height. So we have a couple of different dimensions here. If I click on any one of these corners, you're going to see the length and the width. These are measured in millimeters. So it's important to know if you want to get things lined up. But you can also just grab one, hold it down with your mouse, and you can drag it to make it bigger. And that's where you need to start. You don't need to worry about any specific dimensions. Let's just see how big you want to take that. Or you can even click in and do it by hand. Say, I want this to be 75 by 75. I want a perfect square. There we go. Well, maybe I want a perfect cube. So I wanted to show you how to make the height bigger. So you see the 4, that's length and width. But do you see this box in the middle? That's your height. So I can hold down and just pull it up. Whoop. You're going to see that number, or I can click in that number, and I'm going to say 75. And I've got a perfect cube. So just a much bigger box. Oh, there we go. Nice. Okay. All right, so again, moving around, you can drag anywhere along the work plane to change the size. You can pull, or you can just click in the number and put a number in there. I'm going to take that back to where it was, so I'm going to hit undo. Have my 75 by 75. You can always just click on one of those corners to see what it is. And then my height, 75 there. And again, I can also just go down and go up, or click in there and put the number I want. There we go. So that's the basics of just getting an object out there and making it a different size. The next thing I want to show you is how to bring shapes together, okay, and get those lined up so they're fitting good together. So we're going to do that with the roof of our house. So if I go back over to basic shapes, I can see I've got a few different ones. I have a roof right here. Now the roof, I'm going to start out by showing you how you can move things up and down on the work plane. So I'm just going to drag that over, and you're going to see that it's also selected. So it has a length and a width, it has a height, but it also has this cone up here. All the shapes do. So see right here, that's how you move things up and down on your work plane. So I'm going to come back over here, and I want to move this up. Oh, see how far away I am? Let me see if I can get it on there. There we go. Sometimes that can be really hard though, just because if you're not looking around at it at different angles, sometimes it looks like it's together and it could be way off. So let me show you an easier way, and I'm going to introduce you to a new tool, which is over here. It's called another work plane. So again, our original is our home work plane, but I'm going to use another plane to bring the shapes together. So planes will bring the shapes together. I'm going to get rid of that roof by selecting it and clicking backspace. All right, so here's my work plane. I am going to select a new one by clicking, and then you're going to see it when you come over. You want to put that, before you click again, you want to put it where you want to bring the shapes together, where you want the shapes to meet. So I don't want it on the front, so I'm not going to click here, or on the side. I want the roof to be connected with the top of this box. So I'm going to click there, and there's my second work plane. Check it out. See? It's telling the shapes that you want to be on top of that. So now I can bring my roof over, and it's perfectly aligned on the top of it. See? I can get rid of that work plane by clicking work plane again, and then just clicking somewhere down on the original work plane. Now let's resize it. So for me, I want it to line up perfectly. You can eyeball it, and you can try just, practicing by lining things up where it looks good, but you have to look really closely. Maybe even zooming in a little bit and coming over, which I find that a little bit more difficult. Or, let's go back out. Let's go back to our home view. You can remember what your length and your width was on your box, and you can make your length and the width of the roof the same, right? It's the same here, and you want to line it up, you would have the same dimensions. So this is 75 by 75 millimeters. So that's what I'm going to make this. 75, enter, click, 75, enter, there it is. It's the same size, but it sure isn't lined up. Okay, so basic nether tool introduction. You can always do this manually. If these tools confuse you, just move it around, inch it around, use your arrow keys to move really slowly. I'm going to show you a new tool that will do the work for you. This is our align tool. So before we use the tool, we have to have both shapes, both objects selected. So we have to tell the computer, like, we want these two objects to align. So I'm going to do that by dragging over both objects Now both of them are selected. You can kind of see up here and it's selected up here, right? And then my align tool is here. Anytime you want to know what these objects are, just kind of put your mouse on it and hover, it'll tell you. So there's your align tool. I'm going to click, and then I get these little circles. So I only want to align the length and the width. I do not want to align the height, because if I did that, it would put that in the middle. So we want to leave that up at the top. Oh, let me just undo that because I messed that up. There we go. Undo. I do want to align the length and the width. So I want to align it to the center. So I'm going to bring those things centered together. And then I'm going to turn this around, and I'm going to see I want to align those things together too. And now I have my roof perfectly aligned on the bottom of the house. Check it out. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there. I think my roof looks a little flat though, so I'm going to make it a little taller. So now that I just have my roof selected, I'm going to use this, the height square, remember the height, and I want to bring that up to give it a little bit more of an angle. There we go. There we go. Now it's starting to look like a house. The last thing I'm going to show you to complete your house, and again, this is very basic. You can go into as much detail as you want. It's completely up to you. But I'm just going to show you one more tool that you can use for many reasons, and it's the hole tool, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a door going all the way through this house. Now, if I come back over to my basic shapes, I think I'm going to use another box to give it a door. If I want my door to be rectangle, then I'm going to use a box, right? Because at a box, I can make it a square, or I can make it a rectangle, rectangular prism or cube. And I'm going to turn this into a hole. Now, a hole is what's going to kind of hollow out or punch out a piece of our original shape. So I'm going to turn that into a hole by clicking here. You can turn any shape into a hole. Here, watch this. If I click my roof, bam, roof's a hole. But we don't want the roof to be a hole, so we're going to make it back a solid. But this block, I am going to make a hole. And I'm going to try to go through all the way. I want to make it kind of like the size of a door. So if I'm looking at it, I'm going to make it a little taller. There we go. And I'm going to push that thing all the way through that house. And I could do this. I could do it with my mouse, or I can actually just use my arrow key. And if I'm looking at it like this, then I'm going to use my up key because I want it to go that way. So it depends on how you're looking at it, on what arrow key you use. If I'm going all the way through. Oh, I did. So see how I'm through both sides? Perfect. I kind of want to center that. So I can go, use my arrows to go across and eyeball it, or I can go back to that align tool, select the two that I want, right? Just these two. I don't want the roof. And I click that align, and I want it to align right. Remember, right in the middle. Bam. There it goes. Now the thing with the hole, to be able to punch that hole out, you have to do what we call grouping. So I'm going to select the two shapes that I want grouped together. In this case, I want it to be the hole, which is going to end up being my door that goes through the house, and the block, the house itself. So by selecting both, so just come over to the side and make sure you drag over those two shapes again. And then you're going to go up to this button right here. This is our group tool. So you can group things and you can ungroup them if you want to get your hole back. I'm going to group it. There it goes. Turn it around. Voila. I've got a hole through my house. So that's how you use the hole tool. If you made a mistake, you can always undo, or if you just wanted to ungroup something and change something, select over the things you want to ungroup. And then right here, you'll see an ungroup button. And then there's the hole back, right? And you could change it, or if you want to modify it, whatever you want to do. So I'm going to group that back, group, bam. So there it is. So that's your basic lesson for digital modeling. Engineers use models like this all the time. They use CAD software. This is the very beginning CAD software that is designed for kids to use as a tool to help them with digital modeling in their futures. For you could use it for so many different reasons. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you guys are staying safe. I love you, and until next time, mwah.